Merry Jesus, everyone! In the lead up to Christmas, every year I try to read some sort of Christmas-related thing, and this year I decided to read Hogfather by Terry Pratchett, as well as watch the TV miniseries adaptation Thingy, which has David Jason in it, and he's really committed to it as well. He does a great job. When I got into reading, Terry Pratchett was one of the first writers that was there for me, to carry me through my journey into becoming a big bookworm. And yet I'd never read Hogfather until this year. I remember when I started on my Terry Pratchett journey, when I was 18 years old-ish, I decided to start at the beginning. So I read The Colour of Magic, The Light Fantastic, Equal Rights, and then Mort. Mort is the fourth Discworld novel, and it is the first one to feature Death as a protagonist, and Death is one of the 4 or 5 main protagonists of the Discworld. If you don't know much about Terry Pratchett's Discworld, the protagonist, or protagonists, of his books is usually one of these 4. The Wizards of the Unseen University, the Witches, Death, or the City Watch. Hogfather is also a Death book. And going back to me mentioning Mort, that was the first book of his that I felt like did everything perfectly. It was a book that juggled comedy, plot, tone, theme, and characters all kind of equally, fairly. Mort was the moment where Pratchett got a handle on the Discworld and delivered everything that he set out to do. And so for that reason, Death for a long time has been my favourite protagonist in the Discworld. Although in recent years, whenever I pick up a new Pratchett book that I haven't read before, I lean toward the Witches. But Hogfather, as I said, is a Death book. We begin with these strange creatures known as the Auditors. They are ethereal, godlike things that take issue with life itself, with humanity. And so they turn to the head of the Assassin's Guild and say to him, "There's a man we want you to kill. It's your job to pick an assassin and figure out how to kill this man." And they sort of slide a picture of him across the table, and it's the Discworld version of Father Christmas or Santa Claus, the Hogfather. How do you kill him? That's the challenge. And so the head of the Assassin's Guild says, "Okay, great, you've handed me a whole load of money. I'll get Mr. Teatime." Mr. Teatime is the best assassin in the Discworld. He is a Joker-like figure. He is an unhinged, psychopathic, and yet oddly charming and gentlemanly character who reminds people periodically that his name is pronounced Teatime, not Teatime. And that's a running joke in the novel. There are a lot of running jokes, and Teatime is one of them. And so Teatime figures out a way to kill the Hogfather. But we don't quite follow how he does it. The book has an interesting method of playing with its chronology. You watch at the beginning how Teatime wrangles up a group of people to help him kill the Hogfather, but all we know is that they go towards the Tooth Fairy's palace, and they figure out a way to get in. And then we don't see what happens in the Tooth Fairy's palace. We only see the aftermath. And most of the novel takes place on the night before Hogswatch, which is their version of Christmas Day. So it's the night before Christmas. And they reference that rhyme a few times, just the bit that everyone knows. So 'twas the night before Hogswatch, and Death has realised that the Hogfather is not doing his job, and so takes over. Death hops on the Hogfather's sleigh, which is led by 4, I think, pigs. He puts on a fake beard, he puts a pillow under his jacket, and he pretends to be the Hogfather. Meanwhile, Death's granddaughter, Susan, is working as a governess for a fancy family, and the kids get scared of monsters in the closet or under their bed, but these monsters are real, and Susan has to pull them out and hit them to death with a poker, one of the fireplace metal things. And the adults don't think that the monsters are real, the monsters are real, Susan knows it, the kids know it, and then somehow she's going to get wrangled up in this adventure with her grandfather to figure out what happened to the Hogfather and how they're going to fix everything and keep Hogswatch going in spite of there being no Santa Claus character. There's a lot of moving pieces in this book. As I said, the chronology is not always clear. Things kind of jump around a bit, and we spend a lot of time with other characters that don't seem connected to the plot at first, but things start to make sense later on. Like, for example, you have several professors from the Unseen University trying to break into a room they don't understand, built by a man who was famously an idiot. And you're like, what? Why? And they also have a computer with an artificial intelligence in it that can predict things. And again, why? And it all becomes clear. You just go with it. I've read maybe 10 Discworld novels at this point. I want to read more. I want to read all of them. And this is the one that plays with chronology and has a bit of mystery in it, more so than the others. There is a sense of the murder mystery here, because you don't really know where the Hogfather is, how he was killed, and what exactly is going on here. But, at its core, this is a novel about the spirit of Christmas, what Christmas is really all about, and Death trying to understand Christmas itself. Death has an obsession with humanity. He finds them fascinating, and he wants to understand them a bit better. And this is a novel about faith and belief. If you've read his book Small Gods, which is a book about organized religion and not believing in things just because you're told to believe them, this is kind of the flip side of that. This is Pratchett examining faith and belief from an optimistic angle, and what our faith and our beliefs can do for us, and what they say about us, and our minds, and our creativity, and our humanity. And it's very, very beautiful. Much like Dickens's A Christmas Carol, this is a story about humanity, because it's a Christmas story. And Christmas is always, as films and novels tell us, about love, and community, and spirit, and faith, in us putting our faith in each other, and the things that we hope for, making a better future, getting through the cold together. All of this stuff is explored again and again and again in Christmas literature, in Christmas fiction. And Hogfather's no different. There is only one thing that kind of let me down, which is a moment where Death is playing the part of the Hogfather, and he's furious that if you're rich, you get rich kid presents, and if you're poor, you get poor kid presents. And it's not fair. That society is not equal for no good reason. That so much of this is based on luck and happenstance. And this is a really, really good thing for Death to wrangle with and try to understand, but it doesn't really amount to anything. He becomes aware of class inequality, and then the plot just moves forward, moves past that. And so you get a moment where Pratchett is having a rant about a lack of equality, and that society is not fair economically, and then the plot just kind of moves past it. And there's also a moment within this rant where Death basically says that it's easy for rich kids to be nice, because they haven't got as many hurdles to jump, as many battles to fight, as much surviving to be doing. And then his servant, Albert, I think it's Albert. Yeah, it's Albert. He's the one played by David Jason in the show. He points out that rich kids are also often little shits, even though it's easy for them. Life is easy, and they're still awful. And they have this conversation, and they acknowledge class inequality, and then the plot carries on. I was just kind of annoyed about that. It's just raising awareness, pointing out something that a lot of us already know. Class inequality. Anyway, and I thought, oh, come on, Pratchett. You're smarter than that. You could have done something with that. But it's not really stitched into the plot after that moment. And I have to stop here and say, just to clarify, that even though I haven't read every Discworld novel, I know quite a lot about Terry Pratchett. I've read and watched interviews with him pretty frequently over the last 10 years or so. And for my money, Terry Pratchett was the greatest and kindest man in the history of literature. If I could have dinner with any famous person alive or dead, I would pick Terry Pratchett. I don't think there is a better soul in the world of fiction and literature. Whether or not you like his books, I can't think of a better human being than Terry Pratchett. I truly believe, based on what he wrote, and how he wrote it, and how he spoke, and the relationships he built, and the way that his daughter talks about him, he was the greatest, kindest soul that the world of literature has ever had and probably ever will have. Pretty close to perfect, honestly. He understood satire, he understood comedy, he understood people, and he made light of it, while also bringing up really, really serious and important points about our politics, our economics, our social standing, everything. Again and again and again. And that's why I'm kind of annoyed by that moment. Death goes, I hate inequality. Anyway, I need to go back to fixing this thing. But then, what was he supposed to do? Anyway, I'm kind of dwelling on that, and I think it's because it's my only criticism of this novel. Hogfather really is amazing. It's as good as any other Discworld novel. Obviously, I have my favourites. I haven't made a ranking list, but I should, especially when I've read more of them. I'll probably do that at some point. But I would say that Death remains the most interesting protagonist in the Discworld. I think he's the most complex one. And I think arguably, maybe he's the one that's closest to Pratchett, to an author surrogate within the Discworld. I'm not sure. But seeing Death take on the role of the Hogfather is a really special thing. This is definitely a great book to read in the lead up to Christmas. Or on Christmas Day. Or Boxing Day. Or the day after that. Or the day after that. Anyway, Merry Christmas. Merry Hogswatch. Feel free to join my Patreon community, where I chat every day with a bunch of wonderful bookworms on Discord, and subscribe for books.